welcome to the morning stand-up. I'm Stacy K, and today I have a very special guest. It's election season, and you know what that means. Give it up for Kamala. No, she was busy this week, so instead we got representing Missouri's 35th district from Lee's Summit. Give it up for Keri Ingle.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for doing the podcast. So how's election season been for you?
It's really busy. You know, it's every election season you hear politicians saying this is the most important election of your lifetime. Mm-hmm. But this really, really is. Like, there's just such, there's so much at stake for so many of us. And so it's really important to go out there and not only have a plan to vote, but also make sure everyone you know and that you care about has a plan to vote to.
Nice. So what's the situation look like in Missouri? What y'all think you're going to break the supermajority?
I think this is the year we do it. Yeah. So there's a lot of really close races that we've seen get closer and closer in the suburbs over the last few election cycles. And we feel like this is the year that we're finally going to flip. We only need 3 more in order to break that supermajority, which what that means is currently the Republicans can pass a bill on the House floor without needing a single Democrat to vote on it.
Right.
And so once we break the supermajority threshold, they're actually going to have to come to the bargaining table to talk with us.
Nice. So Missouri Republicans don't seem very good at passing legislation, even with the supermajority. Did they get much done last year at all?
No, it was actually the least amount of pieces of legislation that crossed the threshold like in the history, including like during COVID, where we weren't there for a month and a half.
Yeah.
So so much.
Why are they so bad at it?
Well, I mean, I have a lot of theories. They're not sending their best and brightest. They're also there's so many of them, and they are fighting. They're fighting amongst themselves.
Yeah,
more so than they're fighting us most of the time.
They're so like dominating that they turn to themselves.
Yeah,
that's nuts. And people always talk about Democrats being fractured and in disarray, but I've seen Missouri Republicans just absolutely, like, they have the full majority and everything and just absolutely pass nothing. It's nuts.
And they'll come and complain to us about it. And it's like, it's not my job to pass your crazy bills. I mean, I'm happy to help when our values align on things. But other than that, like, it's a them problem.
So, like, what is the biggest ideological split with the Republicans in Missouri?
Oh, they have so many. The last couple of years, it's been over things like the child care tax credits. It's tax credits in general, I would say. Mm-hmm. Is that there are...
Wasn't that that was like a federal thing though, right? They're trying to get Missouri level tax credit?
So they're talking about it at the federal level too. And there's also the state one, which would be more employer based. That the employer entity would have the ability to create a tax credit system and a child care system for their employees, which would be great. It's super expensive to put your kids in daycare right now. It's so hard to find daycares. People are staying out of the workforce.
So my job, we were working from home for 3 years in COVID, and then they made us go back in January. And my coworkers are losing money working at this job because they have to pay for daycare now. Mm-hmm. And most of the women have already quit. There's only like one other one left besides me. And I don't see her staying for very much longer because of the... So why make it employer-based? Like, that seems...
So they're the ones so it's giving the employer that incentive to invest that into their own workforce.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Do you support that model, or do you like the child care tax credit like we had it during COVID?
I'm really open to anything that makes it to where, folks can have reliable, safe childcare for their kids. Whatever model we can get people to agree to that works for the most amount of people, I think I would be open to having those conversations. I'm definitely not married to one model of it, but it's just a perfect example of something that we should have been able to get done. It was a priority of the governor. It was a priority of, several, like the heads of both the Senate and the House, and yet they couldn't get it across the finish line because of their own people.
Why where was the stick? Like, why did they not? What were they fighting over? Like, how much it should be?
Honestly, I don't think it's really even about that issue. I think that they get so distracted by all of their own crazy. They try to outright flank each other, as we say. Like, they're all trying to fight over who can be the most right wing.
Most extreme.
Yeah. I mean, you know that there were so many of them in both the House and the Senate that were running for different statewide positions last year. So
they're all just
August
running
primary.
for.
Oh yeah.
They're all doing legislative stuff just for their election.
Well, they're trying to get that media clip, that media bite, right?
Yeah.
And become internet famous or whatever. Yeah. So
they're bad at it too.
They're not good at it. No, they're not.
Whenever we were testifying against the anti-trans laws, that dude with the mustache. What was it? He got like this handlebar mustache.
Okay. Yeah.
What's his name?
Representative Aaron Mullins, McMullen.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
I remember he posted, like, after they passed the law, he posted like a selfie that got like I mean, it's not real traction that's going to help him win elections or anything like that. But it's just like I wanted to kill him, man. What a piece of shit to go ban him and stuff like that.
He was running for Senate, and he did not win his Senate primary. No, so he is not going to be an elected official for much longer.
Nice, that's karma. I'm into that. Oh, and on the Kansas side, you know Marvin Robinson.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yes.
So Marvin Robinson was the one Democrat to break with the party and vote to ban, I think it was transports and two other things. I'm pretty sure he was on with the identification change. But he was the one, and he did it for funding for restoration of some kind of ruins around here. And he made a deal with the Republicans to vote to get rid, to ban trans kids in exchange for the restoration of some kind of ruins in his district. And then Laura Kelly, the governor of Kansas, who's a Democrat, did a line item veto on that funding for his ruins. So he didn't get anything out of it. And
so
then,
he sold out.
Yeah, he sold out
his constituents. He threw a huge population of people under the bus and still didn't get what he was promised.
Yeah, he didn't get what he wanted. And then he lost his primary. It wasn't even close. And then he died. You didn't know he died?
No,
he's dead.
Oh no!
Did you not know that?
I didn't know.
Well,
no.
Your reaction, I kind of want to look it up, but I'm pretty sure he died shortly after losing his primary.
Oh wow!
Sarah, can you look that up and make sure Marvin Robinson dead? That's his name, right?
Yeah, we're fact checking, right?
Yeah, I want to make sure before we go. We talk about this a little bit more because you don't want to falsely report on deaths like that. But yeah, that's what do you see?
The first thing that pops up is Marvin Robinson obituary.
And that's the representative from
Wyandotte. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he's dead. What did he die of?
He died at 67.
Did Obama do it?
No comment. No confirmation.
There's no, cause of death? Laura Kelly get him?
I'm not seeing a cause of death, but I'll keep looking.
But yeah, he lost his primary and then died.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
don't vote against trans kids. It's a mistake.
Wow. I had not heard that.
I can't believe this is the way you found out.
Yeah. Breaking news.
See, I was one of the only people on the internet who was tracking Marvin Robinson because he was a turncoat in Kansas. Most people didn't know who he was. So when I saw him lose his primary, I was very happy. But most people on the internet have no idea who he even was.
Yeah.
And then
Pancreatic cancer.
Pancreatic cancer. Ooh. Yeah. So
that's a really horrible way to go.
Yeah, it is. He accomplished a lot in his life. He got trans kids banned from trans kids banned from sports in Kansas. So, and he didn't get his ruins. I don't know. I haven't really looked at who replaced him, but anyways, there's nothing as interesting as that happening in Missouri.
Not that I'm aware of.
What is Evan McMullen? No, that was Aaron McMullen, right? And he's gone. He passed shit against trans people and had this horrible mustache, and now he's out of the picture, and that's cool. So in 22, do you think that this environment is more of a blue environment than it was in 22 in Missouri?
Yes. Yeah.
Like substantially?
It depends on where you're at. So
in the suburbs.
In the areas that can be changed, like the suburbs, yes.
Right.
And I think that there have been some massive demographic changes that we've seen over several cycles. And in 22, we were constantly told by the Republican Party that there's going to be this red wave, right? They were saying it nationally. They were also saying it in Missouri. They were saying that they were going to flip seats, and they ended up losing 3. They thought that they were going to take 5 or 6 of us out, and they ended up losing. So, and that was without having abortion on the ballot and without there being a presidential election where Donald Trump is historically unpopular in the suburbs, where they are overwhelmingly going to vote to codify abortion rights in our Constitution.
Like Kansas did, right? The red wave, because in American politics, at least for the last 30 years, it's whoever controls the presidency loses the midterms, has been the thing, especially if inflation is bad. And Biden had the presidency in 22. So Republicans just assumed that they were going to win big just because, inflation was kind of bad at the time. And it seemed like the indicators showed that Republicans were going to win, but the polls didn't show it. Right. They just assumed that the polls were going to err in their favor again.
You remember what happened in August of 2022 is when Roe versus Wade, June 2022 was,
Right.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of analysts and stuff, they assume that the effect of Dobbs is gone. They think that people don't care about it anymore. And they think that 22 was an aberration because Dobbs had so recently happened. But I think that Dobbs is just starting. People are finding out about it. They're registering to vote. I know a lot of women that were previously pretty apolitical, just white women. Yeah. A lot of them would date Trump people. But after Dobbs, they became militant, blue liberals. We're gonna show up and vote to stop this. Do whatever we have to.
Yeah.
And I just don't. And when I look at the Trump's got to win a lot of voters that he didn't win in 2020. And I don't see where he does. I can easily see where Kamala has an improvement over Biden, especially with women. I think that Kamala's going to make a big increase with women. I've seen it a lot and anecdotally. And I've also seen it, I live in Johnson County, Purple County. They voted for Trump in 16 and they voted for Biden in 20, but it was like a shift of 11 points between that 4-year period. And what really made me think that Trump is screwed is I did jury duty, which, is voters. So it's voters, a lot of them are kind of old. And they're old white people from Johnson County. A lot of them were women. And there was this...
So it's the target demographic.
Right. And these people decide, the median American voter is a suburban old white woman. That's the median. And this room they're doing jury selection, right? The lawyers are asking questions for everybody on the jury. Does anybody disagree with this statement, right? To pick off all the people. And one of the questions was, does anyone have a lack of faith in the American judicial system? And one guy raised his hand. And the lawyer said, why? Why do you say that? And he said, because of the indictment of Donald Trump. And the gasp in the room, of all these generally old, registered voters in Johnson County, Purple County, were just oh. And then I was sitting off to the bench, and there was by a bunch of older women, and one of them leaned to the other one and said, "This guy's an idiot." The reaction was just this dude's a moron, because, and that was before Trump actually got convicted of the felonies. So. Yeah, I don't think he has the same energy that he had in 20 or even 16. He won in 16. He lost the popular by 2. Yeah. But the environment seems different. Trump is now a known criminal. Right. I don't think people have forgiven him for January 6th. Quite that. People think that that's just over. I think he lost a lot of, not a ton, but 2% of voters is enough to make them lose.
That's a huge amount, right?
I know, it's plenty to make them lose North Carolina. And when I look at the election, it looks to me like it's just going to be like a rerun of 2020, and Kamala might get North Carolina. That's my prediction. That's what I think is going to happen. I know I can be wrong. I know polls can give you a false, but the trends and the polls and all that is pretty consistent on that picture. And you're seeing a lot of people panicking about the election now, because if Trump wins, it's gonna suck. Yeah. I can't live here. Like I will move to New York like immediately if he wins, because living in Missouri, in Kansas City, or Missouri and Kansas under Trump, untenable. I won't be here anymore.
I get it. Yeah, I absolutely get it.
But I don't think he's gonna win.
So I'll tell you this: I never wanted to be a politician. That was not something that I saw in my life plan. I was very happy being a social worker. I worked in child welfare and I loved it. And I was on maternity leave with my daughter during 2016 and totally thought Hillary was going to win. I had a bottle of champagne chilling. I took my daughter Hattie to go vote with me. She was wearing a future Madam President onesie. I was super pumped. It was really, really cute until that night, right? Yeah. And then it was, oh God, because I think, there was so much ridicule from the right for what they perceived to be our overreaction to his first election.
Oh, it was so much worse than we thought.
But we saw what was going to happen. Like, Dobbs was not a shock. He promised it. When people tell you what they're going to do, believe them. He said, this is what I'm going to do. And then he did it. And so the people that were crying that night saw how this was going to impact, the LGBTQ community. They saw how it was going to impact communities of color. They saw how it was going to impact women and our rights. They saw all of these things happening because that was what he had been promising to do. And so when he did it, we weren't super shocked. And there's a whole lot more damage he could do in the next presidency. We've now seen what he's capable of. It's not a question anymore. And so I think that a lot of those voters who may have been Trump voters in 2016 and maybe even in 2020 prior to seeing what happened on January 6th have hopefully opened their eyes to how damaging he could be in the future, even more damaging.
So you got involved in politics after 2016?
Yeah.
Just because you wanted to stop Trump?
I needed some way to harness the grief and the sadness and the rage that I felt, but also to advocate for communities in a really real way and I saw that this was a unique opportunity. So when I first ran, and so in 2016, my state representative was unopposed. And he was a Republican man, didn't have a Democratic opponent. I thought that was insane, that there wasn't even the option of voting for a Democrat in the suburb where
right.
I knew I was there. So I knew that there were probably other people who felt the same way I did. That Missouri deserves better representation. They deserve people who are, able to represent all of their constituents, not just the ones that live and look like them.
Right.
And so, decided to run. At that time, I tried to talk my husband into running. I was like, you should run for office. And he was like, are you serious?
What does he do?
He's a computer engineer.
Okay, cool.
So he was like, you should do this. And so I was like, okay. And generally it takes female candidates like 7 or 8 times to be asked by people in order for them to decide to run. And so it was, it's no small feat. We have imposter syndrome, right?
Like, how many times you get asked?
Oh, I mean, I don't think I got asked that many because I knew I had to do something. Like I had to show, I think having a daughter when I did really made me feel responsible. Mm-hmm. Like I brought you into this world and Donald Trump was just elected. Like I can't dip out now. Like I'm gonna show you what it looks like to fight. We're gonna stand up and we're gonna fight back. We're going to advocate for everyone in our community. We're going to not not take the hate. Like, we're not just going to sit back and be like, okay, well, this is how it is now. No, we live here too. And so that's what made me run for office. And it felt really crazy then. It still feels really, really crazy now, because this is not how I saw my life unfolding. But we don't always have, control over the trajectory of our lives. And yeah, here we are.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So was it 18 is when your first?
Yes. Yeah.
Nice. So that a little bit of a blue wave there.
Mm-hmm.
So has Missouri gotten bluer or redder since 18? I can't remember.
So both. So at that time we still had statewide Democrats elected to office. So we had Nicole Galloway in the auditor's office. And, we had in 2016, we had just come off of, having Chris Koster as Attorney General. We had, several other Democrats in statewide offices. So we had, it pretty much completely flipped over with the exception of Nicole in 16. And Eric Greitens was elected in 2016 too, he was a Trump acolyte, right? He was someone who had been, he had gone to the DNC, he had been an Obama delegate, and then he completely changed sides, and then he was thrown out during a scandal.
What was the scandal?
Within 2 years. It was sex related, and also had to do with, I think,
was he on Nude Africa too?
No. I think there were actually allegations of sexual assault.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then there were also ongoing ethics investigations within the House of Representatives.
So is he in jail now, or
he is not?
He beat the allegations.
I don't think that there were ever any criminal.
Yeah, any charges?
Maybe there was. I seem to remember a mugshot. Can we fact check that? But I know that there was a mugshot, so I think that there was an arrest.
Nice.
But yeah, so he resigned in disgrace, and that's how
Republicans
that's
could
how
do
you
that.
got Governor Parson. So it was the Republicans who pushed him to get out. So there was a lot of
that was back when they had shame, I guess.
well, there was a lot of internal. I think that there still is when it comes to things that are scandalous. Mm-hmm. None of them apply to Donald Trump. So all of the morality things that they apply to themselves and to us, they absolutely do not apply to Donald Trump.
It's just he's the one person who can do all of the crimes possible and get away with it.
Right.
I guess they kind of torpedoed George Santos a little bit.
Yeah.
Which I assume it was because he was gay.
I think if it had been, almost any other congressman, I don't know that would have happened the way it did.
But Gates is sticking around.
He sure is.
You would think they would have kind of forced him out a little bit, but
I mean, Lauren Boebert's had some scandals. Several of them.
Was just. Are you talking about the theater
the
thing?
Beetlejuice, yeah.
Yeah. But she got other ones?
That was wild. Not that I'm aware of. I mean, she doesn't have the traditional political bio if you look through
yeah, I know
her family history. So
I've heard that it's sexist to make fun of Lauren Boebert's theater situation.
I mean, I feel like we would go after a male politician for the exact same thing, don't you?
Imagine if I did that as an elected representative, all right? People would be wanting to put me in fucking jail, okay? But she does it, and it's fine. We must not talk about it.
I don't think it's fine. I mean, I've also seen Beetlejuice the musical, and it is not sexy. I was like, of all things to make the move, really? That's the one?
I had not seen Beetlejuice the musical. Is it good?
And I thought it was pretty good.
It's
Yeah, it was surprisingly.
Not going to get you hot and bothered.
No, not at all. Not in the least. I mean, to each their own. I'm not gonna shame her for that. Whatever, right? Different strokes, different folks. But no, that was no.
Have you seen Beetlejuice 2?
I haven't.
Did you like? Oh, you haven't
seen it
yeah,
yet.
me neither.
No.
I was just curious. So you became, you were elected in 2018, and I saw that you were the party whip for a year or two.
For a year, yeah.
How was that?
It was.
Can you explain to our viewers what the whip does?
Yeah. So the whip for either the Republican or the Democratic Party, their job is to shore up the vote, to be able to tell the party leader, as well as lobbyists, where the vote stands. And so you're responsible sometimes for persuading. If you need a few more votes to either kill a bill or to get it passed. or to educate your caucus on, the policies specific to that bill and why they should support or not support it. So you're basically a fancy vote counter. But
did you ever have to torture anybody?
I mean, if I
Hang
did,
them outside the window by their ankles?
I wouldn't talk about it.
Okay.
But no, it's it's a carrot and a stick method, right? Like sometimes there's
What was
this is how it benefits you to vote for or against it. This is how it's going to hurt you to vote for.
And did you quit on purpose?
Yeah, I chose not to run again for leadership.
Yeah.
I highly respect anyone who serves in those positions. It's really, really complicated to balance all of the politics and the relationships within your own caucus. And I wanted to focus on some specific pieces of legislation and wanted to focus on, the bills that I was sponsoring.
So while you were whip, what was the most difficult thing you had to do? Like the most difficult issue you had to try to whip?
Honestly, so I became whip my second year in the legislature, which was 2020. Mm-hmm. And so we were shut down pretty much immediately.
So you're doing it all digitally?
We didn't even go virtually. No,
we didn't.
We straight up. It was March 18th.
I thought that Republicans didn't even believe in. Why'd they shut the session down?
They were all scared of getting COVID.
Okay.
Yeah, they shut it down. We were gone for almost a solid month.
That's
and so we
crazy.
didn't have virtual committees. And so it was around that time that we actually passed legislation that let us have virtual testimony. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was because of COVID, but we were gone a full month. And
That's
so
crazy.
we were all just as scared as everyone else was. And we were getting the information like a smidge sooner than the public. Mm-hmm. And so no one knew what to expect. Nobody knew what was going to happen. And it was a scary time.
I knew that COVID was going to be a really big deal in February, which was a full month before Trump made the executive order. And I remember trying to explain to people, no, everything is going to shut down.
Yeah.
It's going to be an apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
We're not all going to die, but we're going to shut life as we know it is going to be different after this. And it's going to bring the whole world to a halt. And people didn't believe me until it happened. And then that was nuts, man.
It was, and it was, what a time to be alive, right? It seems like a million years ago, but it's also it's so hard to remember what it was like before then because it's changed so many things.
Because you could not imagine something like that happening until it happened, and now it's people are kind of expecting the next thing. They'll hear monkeypox or the new variant of bird flu, and people are like, "Oh, we're gonna shut everything down again." And some people seem like they're looking forward to it. Some people seem like they had a little bit too much fun. Those people that really
enjoyed the sourdough,
they
sourdough
loved it.
starters
They just
and the
loved
Tiger
it.
King.
It was their best time. See, I didn't have a great time in COVID because I got laid off because there was a startup, right? The whole project got shuttered and I got laid off. And then I was in Kansas, and Kansas had an unemployment problem where nobody got unemployment for about 5 months because they had hackers get in their system, took all of the money, and then no real Kansas residents were getting unemployment at all. And I got it 5 months later, but I didn't get any of the federal bonuses or anything like that. So I thought I was going to die in COVID.
I bet.
It felt like the end of the world. I didn't have a job. I didn't have health care. I couldn't even get unemployment. And they shut down the offices. They shut down all the in-person offices. There was nowhere you could go. And if you called, they would hang up on you. There was no way to access this at all. It really, COVID, I feel really showed us how fragile our systems are and how easy they break and how they weren't built for any sort of disasters.
Absolutely.
That shit was nuts.
It was, yeah. I don't miss it at all. Yeah, so that's how I was the whip during that time period, and so that probably affected my willingness to want to do it again because it was I mean, nobody signed up for it, right? That was definitely not how I wanted to spend my time.
Who's the whip now?
The current whip is Ashley Ani.
Has she been the whip since then?
No, so she's been the whip for the last 2 years.
Okay.
And there was another one prior to that.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Crystal Quade's running for governor, right?
She is, yeah.
I'm assuming she's probably not going to win because it's Missouri statewide. But what, I guess is a weird question. Like, what is she targeting? Like, how close does she think she can get? It's running to get, Parsons is gone, right?
Yeah, so the Republican candidate is Mike Kehoe, who is the current lieutenant governor. So Crystal is a very close friend of mine, and we've she's also a social worker. She's been the leader of the House Democrats.
Did she start in 16 too, like you?
She actually won her first election in 2016, and she was in the most targeted race in the entire state at that time.
Is she in St. Louis?
Springfield.
Okay.
So she was the only representative in Democratic representative in Springfield that won in 2016. So it was a really big deal. And honestly, like, anything can happen with any of these races. There's absolutely a path for her to win. I'm out on doors every single day, not just in my district and other people's districts, and talking to voters about her, about state rep races, about state Senate races, about having a plan to vote. And people are honestly excited. And, you know, when we look at Amendment 3 on the ballot, which is the reproductive rights constitutional amendment.
I thought that got struck.
No. That's
okay.
Yeah. That's on the ballot.
It would be
and
cool.
And that's a game changer.
If they, because in Kansas we got 60% for the reproductive stuff. So I wonder how that will play into like the partisan turnout, because I mean, if you get 60% of the vote in Kansas, like if all those 60% vote for Democrats, that would be crazy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Difficult to picture. So I can't, like, I'm excited. Like, Florida's got it. There's a few other states that have abortion directly being put on the ballot now. I can't remember. Arkansas, do you know if Arkansas got it on there? I remember they got, like, enough signatures, and then somehow, like, Republicans were like, you didn't get enough.
Right.
You know?
So, I mean, it was the same kind of thing that they were trying to do here. And so they made several attempts through the court system to try to throw out the ballot initiative. So they slowed down the amount of time that they were able to gather signatures.
They tried to pass a thing to increase the threshold, right?
Yeah. And so this campaign gathered over 380,000 signatures in under 3 months.
Wow.
That's astronomical. So these all have to be registered voters here in the state of Missouri. And we've never seen that kind of that kind of signature collection before.
How much they need?
Like less than half of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, like they were prepared for signatures to be thrown out, to be invalidated, for the Secretary of State to go after, every single signature. And so they wanted to absolutely make sure that they were doing everything by the book and over deliver, which is what they did. And no joke, Stacy, I've never seen anything like this. Like, people, when you come to the door, one of the first things they ask you is, what's your stance on abortion? And when you're knocking in purple districts, it's kind of like, oh, is this a friend, or are we going to be in a fight? Who knows, right?
How many pro-lifers do you run into?
Honestly, not that many. I mean, yes, they exist. This is like, it's Missouri and Kansas, right? Like, they absolutely exist. But the amount of people that will bring that up as their number one issue is something that I've never seen before. So when I ran in 2018, because I was running to flip my district,
right?
I was highly encouraged, not to bring abortion up on the doors. Like, yes, if someone wants to talk about it, like if asks me about it, I'm going to be honest, right? I'm absolutely going to be honest about my stance on it. But in my very first session in 2019, Missouri passed the most restrictive abortion law in the country. It's called the Heartbeat Bill, which essentially eliminates elective abortion at all stages, like starting at 6 weeks, which most people don't know they're pregnant then. So that really, and there's no exceptions for rape or incest. And it's really questionable about exceptions for the life and the health of the mother as well. We've heard from physicians across the state, as well as women who have, were hemorrhaging and needed medical care, and they waited until it was a life or death situation in order to address that, to give that care, because they were so concerned about the law.
Right.
Which, you know, a lot of my colleagues in the legislature really struggle with the basic biological things, you know, how babies come to be. They really, really struggle with understanding that. And
you mean they're stupid?
I've spent a lot of time. Well, I mean, that's what happens when you take sex out of public schools, right? Like, if you don't teach it, they don't know. And so, you know, explaining, and so then we see, you know, we got those people trying to explain what a woman is to us. Yeah.
And I'm like talking about intersex people and
when
chromosomes.
They bring that up, I'm like, where does a baby come from? Yeah. So, you know, these are the same people who want to say that oral birth control is an abortifacient, that IUDs are abortifacients, and want to ban them, by the way. Yeah. So, you know, when they tell you it's just about abortion, it's not about abortion, it's about control, because they're also going after your birth control.
Right.
Which is where a lot of people, even Republicans, draw the line. So here we are. And so, yeah, I think that this election is going to be, who knows, right? Because people are up in arms, and it's people that don't look or live the way you think would make this their number one issue, right? Like, it's not, I've never seen anything like it. The amount of people who bring this up as their number one issue and say Republicans have gone too far, we want them out of our business, we want them out of our bedrooms, like, no. And even people who view themselves as being pro-life will say, like, yeah, I'm pro-life for me, but that's not my decision to make for someone else. Mm-hmm. And it's certainly not the government's responsibility.
I was raised in a very right-wing evangelical cult called the Church of Christ. And there's different types of Church of Christ, and some of them are kind of fine. But my one, I'm pretty sure we're being monitored by the FBI for militia type stuff, because some people were trying to do a militia. But the leadership in our church knew that was really dumb and that we could get federal allegations, so they tried to get rid of it, kill it. So they weren't that crazy. But about abortion, they were the pro-lifers, the militant, nothing matters except for banning abortion. And about half of them thought that birth control was also wrong.
Yeah.
I knew a guy who got his vasectomy reversed because it thought it was against God's whatever, and you know, he walks funny now, but I think he actually ended up leaving the church because he was upset that they weren't going as alt-right as they should have. But yeah, I was around a lot of these really crazy people who would do literally anything, justify literally anything just to ban abortion. And they saw themselves as a small minority in the country, and that they were fighting all this. And I think they were right. I don't think that people, and I think a lot of people took it for granted before Trump. They just, there's no way that Republicans are going to ban abortion. It's been this way since 1972. That's the year, right?
Yeah.
And they just couldn't picture that Trump would actually get it done, get the justices. And I think a lot of people, the Supreme Court is like a nebulous thing far away, and we haven't seen it flip like it did in 20.
Yeah.
It
saw so many replacements.
It had been liberal for so long,
too.
and then just quickly, now it's 6-3 conservative majority, and it hasn't sunk in with a lot of people how bad that was going to be until Dobbs happened.
Yeah.
And then Chevron, and who knows what they're going to pull at next, you know? So, when we talk about the election is the most important election, which, I mean, I still think 2016 was the most important election of our lives. If we could go back and fix that one, this election
but so
would
few
not
of us
be,
took it as seriously as we
no
needed
one
to, right?
And I really think, Hillary won by 2 points in 2016. And I remember the environment. I didn't think that I didn't think there was no way Trump could win. I thought it was a little bit of an outside shot, but I was still very interested to see what's going to happen. And I knew Trump would be horrible, but I underestimated how horrible he was.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that once he actually won, he would, like, have people around him who tell him what to do a little bit. And he fired those guys, and then he fired the guys after those guys, and then he fired the guys after those guys.
But I thought he only hired the best people.
Yeah. He had fired like fucking everybody, and as much damage to our institution as possible. Shut the government down twice. Was it twice? And that was when he had control of Congress and on his own thing. And it just, the dude hates America and like wants everything about it to go down. And but I remember, why did I start talking about this? I can't remember.
Most important election of our lives.
Yeah. So, and then the Supreme Court, when it flipped, and it's hard for people to understand like why things are different now. Like, Republicans are untethered now. They have the Supreme Court that's going to back up everything they say. They can take all of these horrible cases that used to get shut down in the federal courts, that now it goes to the Supreme Court and they get the favorable ruling.
I mean, they've essentially, in one of the latest decisions that we've seen in the last year, they've basically said that presidents are above the law.
Right. They made them immune.
They're kings.
And you saw Jack Smith adapted his filing, right? Do you think that that's going to get past that, or you think
I don't completely know what moves an undecided voter at this point.
I'm just talking from a legal standpoint.
Okay.
Do you think that it's going?
I think it's dependent
because
on
Jack
the
Smith
election.
argues he does it as a private citizen and not as the president.
Right.
And I'm wondering how that's going to work out in the Supreme Court.
I think it's all depending on who wins the presidency.
Yeah.
Because if he wins, I think the case is over. If Kamala wins, prosecution will proceed.
And I really do think he's going to prison if he loses, like on three different counts.
Yeah,
I think he's going to get locked up. I think he's going to house arrest. I don't think actual prison, but you know.
So there've been just such amazingly different standards for him as opposed to any other citizen when it comes to the criminal justice system and the civil justice system, right?
Right.
I don't, there's a reason why they called him Teflon Don for years, is that nothing would stick to him. He's just able to somehow squeak free of all of it. And you know, there've been a million examples of things that he's done legally or illegally and really hasn't been held accountable. And I think that when you talk about people, you know, questioning the justice system and questioning whether or not it's truly fair, you've got to look at how it treats people that are famous, that are wealthy, that are powerfully connected. Is it treating them the same way it would treat you and I? Perhaps not. Perhaps not.
See, I thought people, I feel like they lost faith in Biden, right, as his term went on, and I think people were mad at him, and I think Republicans saw that as like their opportunity to get back. But I think that the reason Biden, his favorability went down is because he didn't put Trump in prison. And I think that, like, when I talk to like old people, like the kind of people at jury duty, they legit see him as a crook, and they're mad at Democrats for not making him accountable. But
that's one of the core things that we have to understand as Americans, is that the Department of Justice is a completely different branch of government than the executive branch, and it should be separate. And that we had.
But I thought that the president appoints
the president appoints, but then they're still supposed to be completely neutral, and it's supposed to be detached.
Was that true under Trump's presidency?
No. He absolutely, he stated multiple times that he believed that the attorney general was his attorney, right? And so he believed that the Department of Justice should be weaponized. So because he believed that and thinks that that's what presidents should do, it makes perfect sense that he would tell everyone that that's what Biden is doing, right? Because he thinks he should be. Because he thinks that the Attorney General is his personal attorney. And that's not the case. The Attorney General is the Attorney General for the United States of America.
Right.
They're the United States of America's attorney, in the same way that our state attorney general is the attorney for the state. They're not the attorney for the governor, right? Mm-hmm. So it's two different bodies, and we should want them to be separate. We should not want the president to target anyone of any party for any reason. It should be separate. They're not a judge. They're not an attorney. They're not a prosecutor. That's not their role. In the same way that it's not their role to make a decision over a case before the Supreme Court, right? We have these three different bodies that are supposed to be equal branches of government. And when you see one kind of sliding into the other, that's where our system starts to break down.
Exactly. So I want to ask you about trans rights. Mm-hmm. Many of my viewers are trans, and there's been a lot of fear with trans people because, I mean, we've all seen those ads, the Kamalas for they, them, the ads for Kuntz attacking him for allowing trans, like they call it boys and girls sports, right? And Colin Allred's ad about how he doesn't support boys and girls sports, as Ted Cruz says. Mm-hmm. And a lot of trans advocates interpreted that as backing away from trans rights, from saying that he meant trans people. According to the Allred camp, he meant literally boys and girls sports, because mm-hmm. that's what the ads say. And I feel like whenever we were testifying with the anti-trans hearings, we made that same argument, mm-hmm. didn't we? Like we were like, we don't support boys and girls sports. Absolutely. And kind of take the chair out from under them. And I think it's kind of clever, because I mean that's what they're saying. Like make them define it, what they're talking about. Right. And also I don't think you should say, if you can avoid using the word trans when you're dealing with these people, and make them have to use the word trans first. Mm-hmm. And but a lot of trans people are worried that Democrats in general, particularly in red states and mm-hmm. like swing states, so like looking at like Sherrod Brown or Allred in Texas or Tester in Montana, that they're going to pivot towards also being anti-trans. And I felt good about the state of the Democratic Party with trans people whenever I started testifying in the hearings and saw mm-hmm. you and Crystal and the Peter and I can't remember who else was all on it, but y'all gave a strong defense. And I want to ask, like, are Democrats planning on abandoning trans people if the polls show that they should? No, absolutely not. I never will, ever. None of my policy stances are based on my party. My principles and my values just happen to align with my party, right? And so my party isn't going to dictate how I feel about something. And for me, this is about the dignity and the worth and the identity of humans, period. So what about the Democratic Party at large? Has there been strategic meetings around this? No. Talking about any sort of... No, and I say that, and I was a super delegate at the DNC. If there's something going on, I am completely unaware of it. We are dooming right now. Yeah. 22 days till the election, I think. Yes, that's right. And we are but who's counting? Right. Me. Same. I think it's funny because some people forget it's so close. You know, like people want to criticize some of Kamala's stances, and it's like, buddy, it's late. Like this is it. This is the final stretch. Get excited. Get everybody. We don't need to have some nuance here. Mm-hmm. We know what the correct choice is, and we should go out. Yeah, we understand that we may not have perfection, but look at the other side. Right? Like, we're not perfect, but look at how crazy they are. I know. And she's also been running for president for how many months now? I mean, it's been like 2 months. Yeah. Most presidential campaigns last several years. They're planned even more years before that. From my perspective, it seems like it was planned. It seems like Biden sticking in with it until the last second and swapping in Kamala. It worked out so well. And do you think they ever had that? They had that as a backup plan, or was it something that just happened?
I've game theoried this out with my friends too. Honestly, I think that debate was pretty shocking to most of people who were watching it.
He looked very tired and just he wasn't saying his words good.
I was honestly really, really sad for him. Really, really sad for him. And I don't think that is anything that someone would, especially a politician, because I know you're going to be shocked by this, but we all have pretty big egos. I don't think that anyone would put themselves in that position willingly.
Yeah.
I don't know what led up to them deciding to do that early debate and it turning out the way it did. And then everything that happened afterward. I know that the Democratic Party at large, there were some of my colleagues, people I know within the party, across the country, were really scared. They didn't know if people would coalesce behind Kamala. They didn't know if they were going to be able to line up the support of the delegates in time. We were really on a crunch. But there was so much fear within the party that this was not the time to... Hi, friend.
Oh, my goodness.
Hi, friend.
No.
This was not... We have a visitor. This was not the time to...
She always has to be a center.
I don't blame her. It wasn't the time to gamble with
an open.
And some people viewed Kamala as being the gamble, right?
Uh-huh.
I felt like it was a gamble to stay with Biden at that point because,
you put him up for the second debate, and if he does the same thing,
I mean, I just think it instilled a lot of fear in people,
right?
That he wasn't going to be up to. Campaigning is so rigorous at a local level, at a state
governing
level.
And campaigning at the same time.
Oh my God. And I can't even imagine what it would take out of you to, I
also heard he doesn't like drugs.
Well.
At all. Just stuff to keep him awake and alert or whatever.
Okay, like caffeine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he's Mormon. I don't know. Secretly.
Yeah. Well, he's in his 80s.
He's old.
He's in his 80s. I'm 40 and I get tired. Right. I get wiped out by this campaign life.
I do stand-up comedy, and usually the shows are late.
Yeah.
And I work a day job, and so I usually wake up at 8, and by 10 p.m. I'm like, I'm not on my sharpest.
No.
And then if I take caffeine or something like that to try to get me up, I can't go to bed afterwards. And then the next day when I'm trying to do another show, I'm going to be exhausted.
And we're not even leaders of the free world.
No.
Yeah. It's so much pressure to put on any person, let alone someone who, look, we will all age, right? It's a biological certainty for all of us. We will all get older. And it was really sad the way it all happened, and I don't think anyone can really argue that. It was sad.
She's not usually this affectionate.
That was perfect.
She just knows that we're talking about important stuff, and she's like, "Remember me, though." What do you think about cats' rights? Should pet insurance be mandatory? Should we have universal pet insurance?
What are your thoughts on banning declawing?
She's for it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it was, I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't in the rooms where it happened, so I can't, confirm or deny that this was planned in advance. All we have is where we are now.
I was kind of surprised with is Republicans seem to be completely shocked that they did this.
But yet they were telling us that this was what was going to happen, for what, a year before?
They were saying that they're going to swap them out with Michelle Obama. A lot of them were saying Michelle Obama was just going to come in and do it, right?
Yeah, so maybe they were speaking their fear, right?
Yeah, but then after the debate, you had to be like, maybe they might swap them out. We should maybe plan for that. But it seemed like the Trump camp was just completely certain that it was going to be Biden.
Yeah.
And they had nothing to go with whenever it was swapped.
And I think Trump is still mad that that's what happened. You can hear him saying it in his speeches and the rallies that, It was supposed to be Biden. They
swear,
cheated me. They cheated Joe. He wants to be up next to someone where he can say, he's old. I am not as old. And he can't do that.
You see the clips, I think it was in somewhere in North Carolina, Kamala talking about, basically saying the exact same stuff about Trump that they were saying about Biden, about why are they hiding him? Why is he not doing debates? It was like the line for line script of what they used to say about Biden.
You know that thing about tables.
Yeah.
They're always turning.
So, I mean, listen, it would be really bad if Trump wins. But personally, I think we have a really good shot at winning. And I don't think it's going to be particularly close. Like, I think we'll know the winner by midnight on November 5th. And I'm worried about Georgia, not in winning it, but I know the state election board is very Trumpy, might overturn it. So I'm really hoping that we win enough to where Georgia's certification doesn't matter.
I will say that, the governors of a lot of the swing states and of the redder states are none of them are election deniers.
Right.
They're either Democrats or they're...
And even in Georgia, Brian Kemp is pretty good. It's just that specific election board, and I don't know the whole legal processes for it.
And so when people talk to me about... I mean, I'm not saying don't be fearful. Like, we need to be vigilant that our votes are counted and upheld and that there's no chicanery that happens. But people are paying attention in a way that we never were before 2020. Like, we never, in my lifetime, and with the exception of, the 2000 election when we had hanging chads down in Florida with Bush and Gore, we never really had questions about election integrity in that way, right? So I remember in 2020, a month after the election, because I was the whip at that time. I was ex officio in all committees, so I was a member of every committee of the House. And there was a hearing called for the Special Committee on Government Oversight, and it was about basically creating a resolution, sending it to the United States, or sending it to the Congress, regarding election integrity, and basically what it was going to say, it was going to stipulate that we had doubts about the election security in all of these swing states that voted for Joe Biden. And so the witnesses that came forward were the Secretary of State, Jay Ashcroft.
He's such a slimy guy. He looks like sweat.
Yeah. Yeah. It's got to be hard to live in your father's shadow like that, right? Like, your dad was, everything. Like, he was the Secretary of State? No, he was the Attorney General. His father was John Ashcroft. And so it's got to be hard to live in your dad's shadows like that. Very glad he did not win his governor primary, the Republican primary back in August.
He wasn't close, was he?
No, he came in third.
People can detect the slime ball off of him, I think.
I didn't see him campaigning though either. So it was definitely him running off of his name.
He's one of the guys who showed up to testify for
as the expert witness.
Yeah,
yes, he was
expert witness for trans kids playing in sports. And the reason he said he was an expert is because he had a daughter.
Oh, because I asked him, I was like, and what gives you expertise in this? And he starts saying, well, I'm an attorney and I'm an engineer and I'm all of these things. And so I start asking him about, genomes and, different. Yeah. And he's like, well, I don't know about that. And I was like, well, you're not a very good expert witness then.
Yeah, that was pretty funny to watch. He got fucked up. I think he was the first witness, right?
Yeah, he was. Because he was the expert witness.
So the witnesses they brought in was nuts.
Yeah.
That one lady who said she was from Florida, she had a crazy wig. You remember her?
No.
She had an insane wig.
This committee hearing, for those of you who don't know, well, how many hours did it last? Was it 7 or 8?
Which one?
Exactly.
The sports one?
Yeah, January of 2023.
The one with the snowstorm?
Yes, the one that lasted until after 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it was almost till 2, and we started at...
7? 6?
Was it that late?
6?
I think it was more like 5.
Yeah, probably.
We were there forever.
We were there forever.
Talking, just witness
and
after witness.
It was every anti-LGBT bill that you can possibly think of.
Yeah, all at once. And they scheduled it when they knew there was going to be a snowstorm.
Yeah, and there were attempts to ban drag. You remember that?
Yeah, and there were a ton of drag queens showed up. Like there was like 30 drag queens.
Yeah.
All showed up, most of them dressed up, ready to testify against it.
It was wild. They combined all of it. It was hellish. It was our first committee hearing of the year. So it was the first bill that was referred to a committee. Think about that.
Yeah.
Like, there are hundreds of bills that are filed in December and in early January at the beginning of every legislative session, right? This was the very first one that was referred to committee and scheduled for a committee hearing. This was their priority. This was their priority. Like, think about that.
I was very upset that they made me drive out there, you know?
Yeah, but, I mean, those bill sponsors did not seem prepared.
No, they were not.
At all.
And they had a bunch of redundant bills and stuff like that.
Oh,
They
yeah.
got,
they didn't understand
they didn't even, like,
the
proofread
language
stuff
in their
and-
bills. Well, the truth of the matter is that most legislators do not write their own bills. And so a lot of times you'll ask them questions about it and they'll be like, oh, I don't know.
Didn't think about
Which
that.
is really frustrating. And if you come in front of a committee that I serve on, especially if I'm ranking member on that committee, like I was of the committee that you testified in, I expect you to understand your bill. Like, if you don't understand it, why should I vote for it? I don't, like, help me understand why you do not understand the piece of legislation that you were trying to make law. If you don't understand it. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
It was like a gold rush. Everybody wanted their name on the
Yeah.
anti-trans bill, and they didn't even care.
Yeah.
It was nuts. I'd never seen anything like it before.
Yeah.
It made me just want to...
Yeah, it was gross. It was really, really gross. And it was also a surprise hearing, right? So it went up exactly 24 hours.
24 hours before
in
the
advance.
thing. I took off work and drove to go do it. It was a horrible time.
That is the thing about the community in this area, though, is that they show up. We show up, right? Because they try to dissuade people. They'll have the committee hearings until
Very
the wee hours of the
inconvenient
morning.
times, make it very difficult for people who had jobs to show up. But Missouri has promo, which is what does promo stand for?
I'm gonna get in trouble because I cannot remember
They're
the
an
acronym.
LGBT organization. They're great at organizing. They always make sure there's people and they coordinate. Like whenever we were doing the anti-trans sports ban, we had a lot more witnesses left to go, but they were like, all right, we got to let this one, we got to stop doing testimony against the trans sports brand and move on to the others because there's going to be enough. So it's like they did a great job of managing the testimonies to deal with it. So like if you're in Missouri or you live around Missouri and you wanna get involved, follow Promo. You can see all their Instagram, their social media stuff, and they'll keep you connected to help testify against these bills, like let you know whatever.
Yeah, because
they need to do.
anyone can come and testify.
And you can just show up. That's the thing that a lot of people don't understand about American politics. And I have a bunch of British friends, right? And a lot of them are trans, and they don't have anything like that. They can't just show up one day and just start talking like about a bill that's in committee. But in America, you can do that. If these bills have to go through a committee first, and a committee is made up of several like people off of the party, certain makeup like that. It was like 40% Democrat, 60%
roughly,
Republican was
maybe
because
70-30,
Republicans
but
controlled the committee for this one, but they have to. The bill sponsor, he proposes it, he says it, he gets questioned by all of the people, and then after that you get to make your testimony. You can talk for 2 minutes and you get to say whatever you want, and they have to listen to you. And it was funny testifying, like they looked very bored. The Republicans were, they didn't look like they were having fun with this at all.
And I think that they thought it was going to be really fun for them.
They did?
I mean, why else would you do it? Like, why would you line up a committee hearing?
It felt like a henchman in like a movie being told they had to kill a puppy and not being super into it, but just like doing their job. Like, well, I guess I gotta take this puppy out back and shoot it, but not in like a moral way where they upset. They were just didn't want to have to go through the process of having to kill the puppy, right? And it made me. I really do not like any of these people. I'm really glad that guy with the mustache lost. That was neat.
Yeah, it's... Somebody asked me the other day what I get most upset about in politics, because there are so many different things to be upset about. And I have to say, it is my Republican colleagues who come after me, who come to me after they've taken a really shitty vote and they feel really bad about it and they want me to somehow absolve them.
Yeah.
They want me to understand why they had to do it, even though they really didn't want to, and they didn't know how they were going to look at themselves in the mirror. They didn't know how they were going to look at their kids in the mirror, or their kids, you know, and so on and so forth. Every vote that we take has an impact. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how you feel. Your vote is what matters. Your vote is what passes or fails a bill, right? Mm-hmm. That is, at the end of the day, that is our legacy. It's not that you felt really bad about passing or voting yes on this really shitty bill that's going to hurt people and you have all of these deep regrets about it. Take that up with your therapist. Take that up with your minister. I'm not here to absolve you. We are elected officials, and we have a responsibility to the people we serve to do what is right, to do what is just, and to follow our moral compass. And if that is not what you were there to do, then you should probably leave. Like if you don't have the courage of your own convictions, like get out. You're afraid that what, you're not going to be reelected? Okay. You're afraid that you're going to get in trouble by your leadership? Okay.
It's not even like they get paid very much.
No, we don't get paid much at all. I don't know.
Have you ever seen Kingdom of Heaven? Mm-mm. It's a Ridley Scott movie about the last king of the kingdom of, what is it? Was it called Israel at the time, or Jerusalem? But the first crusade, right? Mm-hmm. They came over, and it was the last king of that. He's dying of leprosy, right? Mm-hmm. And he wears a mask, and he's playing chess with the main character, and he says, when you stand before God, there will be powerful people who try to play you as a piece, and but your soul belongs to you. And if you say, but I was told to do thus, that will not suffice.
Right.
And I love that quote. He says it, of course, better than me. But I think about that all the time when it comes to politics, and I just don't know how some Republicans develop consciences, you know? Like whenever they did the impeachments of Trump, Romney was the only one to vote. He voted for one of them. Right. And not a single one of them voted. Right. They had him dead to rights. It was very obvious what he did, and all of them voted to not do it. Yeah. And I had more faith in our institutions before that, and now they believe in nothing. They do whatever they're told.
So what disgusts me more is not the people who vote a certain way and believe it to their core. Mm-hmm.
I can respect that a little bit more.
Of course, yeah. It's the people who know that what they're doing is wrong, who will tell you behind closed doors, yeah, I'm not down with this, but I did it because I have to, because it's what my party wants, because it's what these people want me to do. Whatever. Like, if it ever comes to
they love their jobs too much. Me
wanting to, having to make a choice between my conscience, my morality, and my job, I'm out. That's when I should no longer be an elected official, right? Like, if you can't stand up for what you said you were going to, you know, we swear an oath to the Constitution, not just at the federal level, but at the state level when we're sworn into office. And that should supersede what your party is trying to pressure you to do in order for you to further your political career.
Right.
Period.
Well, it's been a great discussion with you. I think that we've talked for a long time. Do you have anything you want to say to our viewers? Anything specific to plug besides vote?
I mean,
you can say vote again.
Yeah, I would. Guys, you gotta vote. 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 Even if you were in a red area and you feel like your vote doesn't matter, it does. It does.
Because, there are local elections.
Yes, in Missouri,
it matters.
Our state representative races. Who are the people, by the way, who vote whether or not you have rights over your body? Okay. Those races are decided by hundreds of people. You could be one of those. You can have a voice in that issue. It's so important. Make sure that you and everyone you know is registered. They have a plan to vote. In Missouri, early voting has already started. And so If you don't know for sure you're going to be able to be there on election day, vote now.
Early voting is great because nobody's ever in line. You just show up,
Yeah.
you get it over with.
Absolutely.
And that's what I plan to do.
And we passed
soon.
no excuse absentee voting in the state of Missouri too,
Oh,
which
nice.
starts 2 weeks before the election, so next week. Right now you can vote absentee, and next week you don't need an excuse at all. You can just go out and vote and be done.
Right.
Know that it's going to count.
Get out and vote, guys. That's the podcast. Thanks so much for listening. And I hope that you and everybody you know votes for the right person. Thanks for watching. Thanks for doing the podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
I know.
Oh my gosh, you guys,
How long
with the
did we go?
meowing.